Hi and welcome back to another video. And in this video, what I want us to do is I want us to set up SSH authentication for our Ubuntu server. So if you want to log in using SSH keys, then this video is for you. The post that I will use for this is this, and you'll find the link in the description. And even if you don't, just go to my website and you can search for this title, okay? If you're on Windows, follow with this post. If you're using a Mac or you're using Linux, then come to this other post, generate SSH keys and use them to log into your CentOS Rel Debian server. This is for Mac and Linux users, okay? It's a very long post, but it has everything that you'll need, to set up your server, to set up SSH authentication on your server. And as well, you can come to bizanosa.com and search for the post here, or you'll find the link in the description below. I'm going to use this since I'm on Windows, and I'm just going to scroll down up to the part where I have this thing for SSH authentication. And you can even follow along with the video. If you just click there, it's going to take you to this timestamp on YouTube where you can watch how I did it on a Debian server. Debian and Ubuntu, almost the same thing, so it doesn't really matter. It's still going to work on your Ubuntu server. Let's start. And since I'm on Windows, the first thing I want to do is I want to create a folder, and that folder is where I'm going to store my keys. If you have Git Bash installed on your Windows, you're going to have this folder. If you can't see it, just enable hidden folders on your Windows and you're going to see it. I'm going to create a folder and I'm going to call it Ubuntu server so that we can just differentiate them. So all our SSH keys will be stored inside here in our root directory, and this is just the root directory, okay? The root directory is your username. On your Windows, your username, you can get to your root directory. If you go to your C drive, if you go to your local disk drive, and then you go to users, now your username, that will be your root directory. And instead of using this link, the tilde, this just replaces that with your root directory, okay? So that's for Git Bash, and even on Linux, it's like that. So if you come here under SSH, you're going to see that I do have these different folders. These are some tutorials I've done in the past. That's why they're here. We're going to create a new one for our Ubuntu, and this is where we're going to store the keys, the private and the public key for our Ubuntu server. So I'm going to call it Ubuntu server. Let me just remove the space. Okay, so once we create the folder, so we've created the folder, we're going to generate our keys, and we're going to generate it inside of the folder we've created, okay? So to generate your keys, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to use that, and this is just the command that tells the system to generate a new key. And we're going to generate a key with this type, and the type for our key is going to be an RSA key, and the bytes for our key is going to be 4096. You can create 2048 if you want to, but we're going to do 4096, and this is just a comment. You can even leave that out if you don't want to, okay? And then this is where we want to store our key. So we're going to store our key there. This is going to be the name of our key, okay? Two keys are going to get generated. We're going to generate a public key, and we're going to generate a private key. A public key is going to have this name plus.pub, and you're going to see it once we've generated it. So let me just copy this, and I'm going to copy that and put it, and I'm going to put it inside of this txt file so that I can just paste in things without having to type them. So SSH key gen, this, we don't need to change anything there. I'll just leave that as it is. That's just a comment. You can change. This is going to be treated as a comment. You can just add it. It can even be something that reminds you of this key. So SSH and the folder, what was the name of that folder? The name of the folder for our key was Ubuntu server. I'm going to copy that. And that's going to be the folder inside of .ssh, paste, and then we can just call it that, okay? It doesn't really matter, right? Or we can just call it Ubuntu or whatever. This is going to be the name of our key. You can call it whatever you want. You can even remove that bit. You can call it anything that you want. You get the point. So I'm going to copy this. This is going to generate our key, and it's going to generate both keys. So let's come back into Git Bash where we already logged in. Please note that you need to do this on your local computer. you're supposed to generate your key on your local computer. The folder where you're storing your keys will be on your local computer. So generate this on your local computer. Even if you're on Linux, make sure you remember that on the other end if you're following the other post. And I can log out, or I can just open a new instance of git bash, and then I'm going to paste that. Remember, we're doing this on our local computer. So the name of our key, the key will be stored inside of that folder, and we're generating a 4096-bit key because Ubuntu 20.04 supports that. All right, so the key is being generated, but you're being asked for a passphrase. So make sure you enter a passphrase, which is going to be a password for your key. So every time you need to log in with your key, it won't be automatic. You'll first of all get asked to add your passphrase. So you can add that, but since I'm just doing a demo, I'm not going to add it. I'm just going to skip. But make sure you add one, and make sure it's one that you can remember, because if you forget it, you will not be able to log in, and you may have to do a few resets on your server just to make sure that you can access it once again. So I'm going to press enter, and I'm going to enter again. So once I press enter, the key will be generated, and you can see that we've generated 2 keys. Okay, if you read that, you'll see that we have 2 keys now. We have the private and the public key. The .pub key, this is a public key, and the other one is a private key. So I can just copy this and put them together with this. Once we generate the key, we need to add them to our server. We have generated our 2 keys. The next step, let's add our keys onto the server. So add the public SSH key to your Linux server. So by the way, you can use this for any server that you're using, whether you're using CentOS, you're using Red Hat, or even the new ones, Alma Linux, Rocky Linux, Debian. You can follow with this post, and it's going to work for any of those Linux servers. So let's add the private key. Let's add the public key to our server. Let me just copy this, and then we're going to replace things as we need to. Copy it here, and then I'm going to explain it. So this is going to add our public key to the server. So SSH copy ID is going to add our key to the server, and this is just telling us the identity of the key that we want to use. So the path to the public key, and then for the user that we want to add it for. So here you're going to add your IP address plus the user that you created, not for the root. Add this for the user that you created, and the user that I created was new user 21. And then I will add my IP address later. So SSH copy ID, the path to the key. Now I will copy this because I know that my key is inside here. Both my keys, if I go into that folder, Ubuntu server, you can see we have our public key and the private key. This is the one that we need to add into our server, and we're going to add it. Since this is the name of our key, I will copy, and I will replace that with this, because this is a path to our key. And then just remember that with .pub is a public key, without .pub is a private key. So let me add .pub because we need to add the public key to our server, not the private. All right, I can just copy this and add this to our server. I'm still doing this on my local computer. If you see this, this is my local computer. So I'm going to paste that. I'm going to paste. Okay, I must have copied that line. I shouldn't have. Let me come back and I will paste this. Okay. So this is going to add our key to our server. But first of all, we need to add our IP address there. Let me go to Contabo and find my IP. After adding my IP, I will just press enter, and I'll be asked to log in as this user so that I can add my key. So just remember the password for the new user that you set up, because in a moment we'll be asked to log in. So it's adding the details that we need. Okay, so we need to add the password for that, for the user that you created, so that you can log in and add the public key. Just like that, you have now set up SSH. You've now set up SSH authentication for your Ubuntu server. You can see one key has been added, but I still need to do one thing before I try to log in. Let me come back to where I'm logged in into my server. So this now I'm doing this on my server where I'm logged in. Let me just press enter to see if I'm still logged in. Okay, yeah, I'm still logged in. We want to change the permissions for the key that we've added, because on Linux, if you don't add the correct permissions, you will not be able to log in with those keys. We need to change the permission for the SSH folder, and we need to change the permission for the SSH authorized keys. Now this is where the key has been added. That's why we are changing it to root level permission. Now this is a folder. Okay, this is a file, and we can combine two. So this is like combining two commands. So we could have easily just have pasted in that, and then once this has been done, you come in and you paste that, but you want to do this in one line. So I'm just going to copy this entire thing. I will bring it back to where I'm logged in, because I need to change permissions for those two items. Press enter, and of course you need to add the sudo password, the password for this user. Since there is no error, there is no output, that means that the permissions have been changed, and you can actually look, if you can actually see the permissions for that. Okay, if you just do ls-la, you'll see the list of all the files, but I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to do that. You can just do that to see, and you'll see that the permission has been changed. Now this is very important, because if you don't do this, you'll never be able to log into your server. Okay, once you've changed the permission, this is now the next important thing. You have to change ownership for that file to the user that you created, because if you don't, that file is now owned by root, and this user needs to access that file so that they can log in. They need to access the public key that was added there. Right now it is at 600. This is a root level permission. Okay, for you to access this, you need to have sudo privileges, or you need to be root. We have to change the ownership for that file into the new user that we created, because if we don't do that, we won't be able to log in. We will never ever be able to log in. So let's just come in here and paste that in there, and I need to copy the user that I created. Make sure it's the user that you created, and where there is Joe, just replace that. So this is a group of Joe. Paste the group of Joe, and then the user of Joe, you give it the user that you created, and then of course the home directory folder, you want it to be this guy. So everything inside there, you're giving permission to this guy. You're giving ownership to this fella, this new user. Okay, you're giving ownership to the group and to the user for anything inside of this, and the public key that we added is inside of this folder. So let's go back to git bash. I will paste that in there, press enter, and as soon as I do this, now I will be able to log in via SSH. Let me open up a new git bash instance. Okay, so let's try to log into our server using the SSH keys. Okay, let me come back to this place, and we're going to test our SSH authentication by trying to log in. So I'm just going to copy this, copy that. I can explain what they do. All right, so you remember initially we logged in as SSH user at IP, and that was it. Okay, and then we were asked for a password. Right now we need to add the user server IP and an identity for a key. Okay, this tells the system that you want to log in using a key with this identity. Okay, so the identity for our key, we can just copy that right here, because our key was generated as that, and I'm just going to paste that in there. Now the server IP, I will take that, copy. Let me just remove everything here, paste. So I'm going to add the IP address once I copy it from Contabo. So let me just copy all the way up to here. Copy. Now the way that I've shown you how to set up SSH is a really nice one, because you can create multiple keys for different servers. If you do it any other way, you're probably going to have problems if you try to create other SSH keys. Now let's come here where we're not logged in, and I'm going to paste this. And remember, I haven't added my IP address. As soon as I add it, I will be logged into my server because I did not add a passphrase. If you added a passphrase while you are generating the key, you'll need to enter your passphrase. So let me just go back, because I need to enter my IP address there. Paste. So that's the private key that we want to log in with. Remember, the public key was added on the server. The private key is now the one we're using to log in. So if I press enter, I should log in automatically. And you can see for me, I was logged in automatically because I did not add a passphrase. However, if you added a passphrase, which you probably most definitely should do, then you'll need to enter the passphrase as soon as you press enter. Now let's go back, and the last thing that I want to do is I want us to disable the root user and the password authentication, and I want to do this in this video. So I'm just going to copy this. So what we're doing here is we're going to make it such that people cannot log in with the key without our key. They have to log in using a key. So if you don't have a key, you won't be able to log in, and we're also going to disable root login. So let's do that in the SSH configuration file. So if I do that, enter. Okay, now we are here on the SSH file. What I need to look for is I need to change two things here. First of all, I need to change permit root login to no, and I need to change password authentication also to no. So let me just go and search for them. So I'm using Nano. You can see we are editing using Nano. So with Nano, I can just copy this and then I can search for it. So if you want to search for anything on Nano, just press Ctrl W, and then since I'm using git bash, I can just do shift insert to copy, to paste I mean. And then when I press enter, it's going to look for that. And you can see permit root login has been set to yes. So we don't want root to be able to log in. So we want to set this to no. And we're going to delete yes. And then the next thing that I want us to look for is password authentication. So let me just copy password authentication from here. And we're going to search for it in the SSH config file. So once again, let's do Ctrl W, and then I'm going to do shift insert to paste, enter, and you can see password authentication has been commented out right there. It has been commented out, and we need to uncomment it. I'm just going to uncomment it, remove the hash sign, and that's going to uncomment it, and then we need to change the value to no, and then I will delete yes. Okay, so once I do that, I can just do Ctrl X. Now just note that there are other things you can change in this file. If you want to be really strict, you can change lots of things in these files. Okay, so maybe you want to reduce the number of times somebody can try to log in. You can reduce that there. The maximum sessions, how many people do you want to be logged in simultaneously? You can change that there. Just make sure you don't make things too strict, because you might end up blocking yourself out. Okay, just Google stuff before you change anything. Google stuff and see the implication of the changes you're going to make. So I'm just going to do Ctrl X to exit out of Nano, Ctrl X, and then Y to accept the changes, and then enter to exit out completely. The next thing is I need to restart SSH, and I don't want to type this, so I'm just going to copy it from here. SSH, let me use sudo service SSH restart. I will do shift insert to paste, press enter, and as soon as I do this, now if somebody tries to log in, they will not be able to log in as the root user, and they will not be able to use the password. So that was the objective of this video. The objective was very clear, and it was to set up SSH authentication for our server. And the link to this post is in the description, so you don't have to worry about that. You can just come, you can even come here on my site and you can search for this post if the link is not there, but I'll make sure I add it for you. So that's it for this video. Make sure you follow everything as I've done it, because if you don't, you may end up making various mistakes that will have serious ramifications, such as you not being able to log into your server. So make sure you follow everything step by step. Just be patient and follow along step by step. These things are very easy once you get used to doing them. Okay, so just make sure that you follow along step by step. And that's it for this video. In the next, we're going to do the final thing, and the final thing is creating a swap file in our server. And I'm just going to use this. Okay, this is for Debian, but I'm just going to use this because it's still going to work on Ubuntu. So that's the last thing that we're going to do before we install our control panel. After that, we're going to install the control panel, and we'll see how to add websites and how to run your website, work with DNS, and so on. So that's it for this video. I'll see you in another one.